Hey there friends, hi. Dan here, otherwise known as Dana Spirit Butterfly. Just delivering this month's energy forecast based on lunar cycles to emphasize or highlight the return to our natural selves, which involves cyclic aspects of us rather than just linear timelines. Because we understand that, of course, when we orientate with our maps, with the mind focus of this trajectory that only sees direct lines, we tend to suffer more. And when we create some spaciousness for cyclic orientations, we develop more rapidly, in a more grounded fashion, and with greater connectivity to the rest of the world, to the rest of our world, which is one and the same thing from our own perspective, always and in all ways. And so if you've not met me before, I'm Dana, Spirit Butterfly, named professionally because I'm a spirit channel or a spiritual medium. And what that means is that I am able to perceive beyond the obvious, beyond the physical, to disclose, discern, or reflect energy that helps us to better understand ourselves, or you, potentially you, in space and time that is beyond just physical obvious matters. Some might label this witchcraft, some might label this woo-woo. Really doesn't matter from my personal perspective what you choose to label it as. All I know is that since I've been able to sense and see spirit, the world has changed, and in a way that is more full, more round, more circular for sure. And also it feels safer somehow. It feels a little bit more real. And it's ironic that I say that because a lot of people who haven't yet felt, sensed, or seen the spirit world in the way that I have, or even in some way with some deeper intrinsic acknowledgement that that's what that is, you might find that it's difficult to really understand what it is that I'm saying. And if you're curious, if you're feeling a part of you just deeply curious about what this conversation might be, then I invite you to stay watching this video. And if not, that's fine. Ultimately, it is none of my business what you decide to do, but I am here as an opportunity, perhaps, for you to perceive something beyond that which you might already know. Or even you might hear something that actually resonates with you in some way, shape, or form that you might not hear, sense, or notice in any other way, in any other vehicle. So let's dive in. An energy forecast is really just a collective commentary on where we might situate ourselves within a collective. And when we talk about the term collective, we're just acknowledging that as singular beings with a mind that sees out of eyes that are ours, with a belief of an identity or a personality or, a name. I'm Dana. Nice to meet you, whoever you are. We all have our own individuated orientation or unique personality or expression. And it's really important, firstly, fundamentally, that this is known, heard, and held as being a truth. Failure to understand this about yourself can lead to a lot of confusion socially, perhaps at your workplace, perhaps within your own family dynamics. When you can understand that you are you, I am me, you have you and I have me, and there's this space in between, you can better understand that there are certain dynamics that play out in collective fields. And that might be you in relationship to one other. So that might be me and my partner at the moment. It might be me and my sister. It might be, you and your brothers and sisters, or your families and friends, or it might be your community, that which where you're locally landed in physical location, or it might be a community that you belong to, maybe online or through a particular interest. Either way, these dynamics are influenced by a collective field, and the collective field is magnetic and can be perceived as synchronistic with other people in the same collective. So you might notice that some things move through you around the same time that something moves through maybe one of your family members. And those synchronistic events are really attunement, recognitions of attunement And when you find that you're navigating your world alone, maybe you're not in a love relationship, or maybe you find that you're in a transition where you're focusing now on self-care and prioritizing you, whatever that is, whatever that flavor is, you might find that during this period of time, there's a time where you feel a sense of disconnect, or you feel a sense where the placeholders for other people in your relationships that help to reflect you so that you can see yourself better might not be in place. And I've been there. I've been in places in my life, very extended time periods actually, where I've been convinced that there's no relationship that's in my life that feels like it's meeting me, that feels like it's able to reflect me with some level of accuracy, or that feels real, that feels like a real reflection of me personally. And, you know, the Spirit Oneness has a lot to say about that. And if you have any particular circumstances in your life at the moment that you need some support or guidance, or you're curious as to what Spirit might say about your particular situation, please book a session online. I'd really love to read for you. And it doesn't matter if you've never had a reading before, or if you have a particular worldview. All that matters is that there's a desire there to sit in a seat of receivership of what Spirit might know, see, sense, and witness about you. Can be deeply healing, can be deeply grounding for many people, is my experience. But for you here now, you might also have some conflict in relationships, and Spirit kind of lands me in conflict. When we're talking about conflict, of course, there's so many different types of conflicts that can arise. The conflict, for example, you can see these roses in the background, which I just want to acknowledge, rose. And also we've got some gum nuts there. So I want to also acknowledge eucalyptus as two of the plant allies that I work with very strongly. You might be in conflict with rose, a rose plant that you might have at your place, where basically you're trying to figure out how to grow it, and no matter what it is that you do, it might not bloom. There might be something going on that you're curious about, or that's distressing you about that. When we talk about relationships, we might also talk about the obvious, you having a relationship with another human being, or it might be you with a pet, or you with an idea about your ancestry. All of these things are basically talking about whether or not you're feeling a sense of grounded, harmonious resonance with things, whether or not you're feeling like there's some energy that might be blocked, or there might be something in your past that's still hoarding energy or holding on to energy that keeps your mind moving back into the past and revisiting that particular point of distress or stress of any kind. Those types of things are calling cards for you to sit down and have a conversation with Spirit. And that might just look like you just having a real good look in the mirror and seeing your own reflection based on what it is that you see yourself as and to be. But it might also be that you need to book a session with a counsellor, or maybe you need to follow up with some heart pain or digestive issue with, you know, a general practitioner, or with a specialist, a nutritionist. Either way, whatever it is that you decide to do, this particular moon cycle is one that backs off the back of an eclipse experience. So we've just come from what often a lot of spiritual advocates talk about as eclipse season. Eclipse season happens basically 3 times a year, but it is where we get either a lunar, solar, and a lunar eclipse in a row, or just a lunar and a solar eclipse in a row. And we've just come out of a solar eclipse. The solar eclipse, it occurs on the 2nd of October if you're in the States or the Northern Hemisphere. And here in Australia, it's on the 3rd of October in the evening, in the early morning at about 4 a.m. And that solar eclipse, you might feel it already. You might still feel it if you're watching this video past the 3rd of October. The energy of a solar eclipse, it just flips things a little bit. In a fashion, it makes us more psychically sensitive, and especially so as we've just come through a water sign full moon. We just had a lunar full moon in Pisces, which is usually gifts us with some great intuition and psychic wisdom. It also means that you've probably been having a lot of dreams, a lot of really crazy and a little bit kind of deep dreams that perhaps you're having difficulty fully understanding what your psyche is trying to tell you. Either way, doesn't matter what your personal experience is, because this is a collective conversation with this video, but we've just come from a full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces, and we're just about to enter into a new moon, of course, dark moon into the new moon, solar eclipse, which is in Libra. Thank you to my notes. And so these two energies can be a bit combative in that between space, which is about a 2-week period. You may have a lot of upset. There may be the conflicts that you've been maybe ignoring or you don't really want to face might be right at the front of your the spirit just said suppression zone. And when we use the term suppression zone, it basically just means that these conflicts are ones that maybe perhaps you've been pushing down or ignoring and not really wanting to face. And eclipse seasons, what it does is it actually almost forces you to have to acknowledge that these things are going on. And you know, the funny thing is that you can ignore all things in your life that are meaningful to you and that are potentially creating constriction and restriction and abandonment trauma, repeating abandonment trauma in your past. You can spend your whole life suppressing that. Most of our ancestors did that partially because they had to, because there was no space for them to explore themselves emotionally in the way that we do today. But these are great opportunities. They're great opportunities for you to finally go, aha, actually, if I give myself maybe a little bit of space, maybe an afternoon, maybe a couple of days, a couple of weeks in a row, a little bit of space to let myself sit down with that part of me that's still feeling bruised and distorted and a little bit hurt. If I give some space to do that, then perhaps I might feel easier. Perhaps I might feel lighter. Perhaps I might feel some of the really dense pain that I'm feeling in my spine because my spine's a bit locked up. Maybe that stuff might move. And it's true that a lot of the wounds that we carry are emotional in nature. Most of the wounds that perpetuate into deeper organ failure or, you know, skin diseases or digestive upsets or difficulty focusing or impaired eyesight, these types of things are nearly always emotional based in some way. Sometimes we've inherited them from ancestors who themselves had distorted patterns of emotional dysregulation and an inability to see clearly what was going on with them, either because their education level didn't allow them to perceive more about what was going on with them, and therefore they were unable to get beyond a certain point of development with that, or simply they just were taught not to value that. And today, with the technology that we have now available to us at our very fingertips, it's almost shameful if you don't give yourself some time regularly for some form of self-development. And specifically, again, during eclipse season, this stuff it gets pushed up to the surface, and you might find that you lose your temper fast. You might find that you're more irritated than usual. You might find that your sleeping cycles are disrupted. All of these things are signifiers that there's something deeper going on that you really need to do something about. Otherwise, this stuff, you can keep piling layers and layers of positivity and all of these, you know, band-aid approaches to how this stuff might somehow suddenly resolve. Or you might even come to what a lot of people do, the conclusion that this is just a conversation about aging. And, you know, Spirit wants to just say kind of gently, softly, aging conversation. It is true that our bodies change as we age, but not in the way we've been educated. And when we fail to go a little bit deeper beyond what it is that we've been educated in, to perceive a little bit beyond what it is that our old conversations were, so that we can start to bring maybe fresh eyes into this new conversation, then, you know, it can perpetuate distress and disease and uncertainty and insecurity. And, you know, we are not here to necessarily shame any person who does that. Sometimes that's survival strategy. But obviously, life is easier when you're not fighting so much just to survive. Life can be much easier than that. And sometimes all it takes is the start of a spiritual practice of worth to you. And you don't know what that is until you experiment or try something more full. And so moving forwards, looking at new moon in Libra, air sign, I will, to my Patreon members, send you a short air ritual that you may do I've got a specific moon ritual tier there, which is just a little cost if you'd like to learn a little bit more about how to bring some ritual into your space to help to ground and solidify your own energetics, which, you know, I swear by, and absolutely I'm an advocate, and Spirit is saying for me to remind you that this is actually partially how we repair our systems, to remember how to be cyclic in nature, because this is how we thrive, is to balance the linear trajectory, the masculine focus and orientation, with the more feminine, subtle, cyclic, grounded, embodied, experiential. So less thinking about it and more doing something that feels like a contribution to your own health and well-being. And trust me, this is, you know, it doesn't actually need to be complicated, and it certainly doesn't need to cost a lot of money, but you do need to do something different in order to bring some of this new energy into your life. We do have a full moon in Aries. It is still a super moon. We've had 2 super full moons in the last 2 cycles, and we've got another 2, with this one being the second to last one. The super moons just really talk about the moon's proximity to the earth, but what it does is it does amplify the energetics of the lunar planet, the moon. I've got 50 different ways of describing that particular giant and its impact on our lives. So the lunar energy itself is really a reflective energy. It reflects the sun. When it is a super moon, the energy is just more intense and it goes for longer. And Spirit's also reminding me that we're all orientated slightly differently. So a lot of this information that I'm giving to you may be general in nature, but that's because really it's up to you to personalize it, to know thyself through your own exploration, but also because some of these energies, you know, until you actually drop more fully into acknowledging that they're impacting you, which of course we don't just say that it acknowledges that it impacts you just because we've told you to do so. It's more about you actually giving yourself some space regularly to notice how you're feeling in your body, how your mind might be more chatty than usual, or might actually be calmer than usual, or that you might notice that your left side is more active than your right side, or you might notice that you're more sleepy today. Whatever it is that you're noticing, it's your responsibility to have an awareness of your own system and how it regulates and how it dances with the energetic beings that are here. You need to understand how that works for you, because it does impact all of us with slight variation. So other people might not be impacted by the moons that you are, because we all have a different orientation when we're born, and we all have different ancestry, and we all have different land belongings. And when I land on land belongings, I just want to, before I go much further into wrapping up this video, I just want to pay my respects to the traditional owners of this land. I'm on Wurrung land near Boon Wurrung, which is where I used to live, otherwise known as Melbourne, Melbourne, Victoria. I'm traveling at the moment, so if you're in Melbourne, I do have a few more spots in person. If you'd like some sessions, please reach out to me. And those of you who aren't in Melbourne, if you'd like a session, my website is www.danaspiritbutterfly. That's DANA spiritbutterfly.com. There is a book now button on the website, and you can go straight to my availability and sort out everything, and then we just meet at the agreed time. So if you like a session, that's where you might go. So super full moon, 17th of October here in Australia, might be on the 16th if you're somewhere else in the world. Super full moon in Aries. Expect a certain amount of illumination and a certain amount of pressure to change. And Spirit's just saying that because of the current environmental factors that are going on at the moment. There is a lot of weather interference that's helping to keep us a little bit unstable, and the Aries energy can be really quick to anger. It can be really fast to get aggressive, and that's not to say that all Aries are like that, but it's kind of like a short attention span, or at least a short fuse. And we may all experience something similar to that. When it comes to relationships, of course, remember the first relationship that you belong to is your relationship with yourself. And with the Libran energy is often one that actually bypasses the self in order to be involved in the collective consciousness. And this might be that at the beginning of the moon cycle, you might notice that you're more interested in current affairs, or you're more interested in the affairs of others. And you might have a sense of, oh, I really want to help these people, and I know exactly what it is that they need, which is never true. We never know exactly what other people need. But your first relationship will always have to be with yourself. And so a part of that, talking about reflective nature, the reflection of things, when you are in this moon cycle, you might find that you notice things about the external world that you really want to comment on, and you have a lot to say about that. And your personality might be the type that just says stuff, or it might be the type that actually just keeps it within and then just sits on the edge of, should I say something? Should I say something? Should I say something? By the middle of the month, you may say things, and you may not be ready to say things because perhaps you don't have the skills to be able to softly deliver something to someone, or maybe you say it to someone who's actually not ready for it at all. And in that, Spirit just says, with great peace and reverence, just own your own shit. It's just as simple as that. Just own your own shit, because most of the commentary that we have about other people actually says more about us than it says about other people. And when you make the switch to understand that, you do get better at owning what it is that's going through you, and you take more responsibility for your own energetics. And as soon as you get there, healing is much simpler and relationship paradigms shift in your favor. We are then going to end in a new moon in Scorpio on the 1st of November. We're not going to talk much too far into that. There's certain things that are coming up in November, of course, acknowledging also that we are in the last quarter of the year. So the year is suddenly moving to a close. There is so much coming online that you may actually be a bit overwhelmed by the time we get to Christmas. But for now, we are just going to wrap up this video. But before we do, we also just want to acknowledge that at the end of October is, of course, Samhain in the north and Beltane in the south. These are very exciting times for the Celtic calendar, for the Wicca calendar, if you'd like, because Wicca is often associated with pagan Celtic magic. These types of orientations at the end of October means that there is a easier way of connecting to the spirit world, particularly our own ancestors. Samhain, the current modern name that people give Samhain, is Halloween, and Halloween is celebrated at the exact same time of year, whether you're in the south or the north. And so it does get a bit complicated. If you'd like to learn more, I invite you to please come and join my Patreon community, where I do offer some free resources, and also I have a limited number of tier-based memberships that gift you with more information and technology around how to work with spirit energy and how to start to align your own energetics so that you can hear, sense, feel, and know more about what's going on with you and the world that is in connection with you. I'm very excited also that on the 7th of October, I start another cycle of the clairs, which is our fundamental psychic senses. Everybody on the planet should understand what the clairs are. The psychic senses are a language that all of us speak, and when we do so unconsciously, it gets a bit muddled in our head, and we start to get lose sight of who we are and how we're orientating with others. It also is the beginning of any psychic readership that you may aspire to, and certainly the spirit mediumship stuff that I do. The Clairs is a foundational course. It's a 5-week online self-paced program, and you'll find out more about that on my Patreon page. So please do come and join us. I'm very excited to be building a community on there alongside my Rose community. So please do reach out if you have questions. But if you'd like to know more about the Patreon stuff, that would be www.patreon.com/Dana Spirit Butterfly is my page. And so, as always, I'll keep those links down the bottom. But yeah, if we could emphasize on anything for this moon cycle, again, it's just about noticing yourself and how you're orientating in the world. Is really important to do that right now. As things start to speed up towards the end of the year, heading into the seasonal month of December, You may find that failure to do work on yourself now may lead to instability at the end of the year. So I would say, while things are a little bit more settled, gift yourself the course. Thanks, Spirit, for moving my mouth to say course. I wasn't going to say course, but okay, gift yourself the course. Come and join us. I would love to show you what I know about Spirit. And if you've listened this far, perhaps it's time for you. So with that, kisses, be well, take care of yourself, and I hope to see you soon in person here in Melbourne or in the Northern Rivers when we're back. We are going to be in Sydney, me and my partner, we're going to be in Sydney close to the end of October, and then heading back to the Northern Rivers in November. So hope to see you. Much love. Take care. See ya.